Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the AEL week number 5. I am yours truly, Quacks. After a week-long break, I was out in California, but I am here now to cast the Aegis Executioners League, and I could not be more happy to do it, along with Slayer, our special guest here for week number 5. Brittany, busy over at Defiance, busy over on Running the Rift. All the love to her, but we are back here to cast some more action and nearing playoffs as well. This is, I believe, 2 more weeks until we get into those fabled play-in stages, and both of these teams just trying to polish up their records a little bit more. So Slayer, welcome to the AEL, man, and welcome to some banger League of Legends in this league.
Yeah, thank you, Quacks. I am happy to be here beside you, obviously, and also first time in a while I've got to watch players at technically my skill level play the game of League of Legends in a competitive sense. I'm purely basing it off rank solo queue as my ranking there, but yeah, I'm stuck in this elo, so it's gonna be fun to see how some of these guys execute, how some of these guys perform, especially when we talk about the fact that everybody is waking up to the new patch 14.15 live for the first time in the AEL. I have to get used to saying that one.
Yep. So, for those of you who are a little bit or need a little bit of a refresher onto 14.15, mostly just nerfs toward some pretty key heavy hitters in the meta at the moment. Aurelion Sol getting hit. That's kind of an AEL favorite. Slayer. A lot of people seem to like the A-Sol here at this elo, along with the Aurora. I think she is still disabled, but still a strong champion. But sadly won't be able to see her this week. And then the Ezreal, I know you're sad about that one as an Ezreal main yourself. So a few champions, a few notable ones being hit in this most recent patch, and the buffs toward champions like Talon, Varus, and Yasuo, so probably not going to see any of those this time around. Nobody likes fighters, and nobody seems to like assassins. As an assassin main, I cry in the corner after we get off of stream every single week, not being able to see any of my class hit the limelight. But the 2 teams that will be hitting the limelight here in week number 5 is going to be Optimal Esports Dynasty, sitting at a 2-1 record. They were not with us last week. They had a bye week, and their roster consists of Terps, Kirov, Rutledge, Maze, and not QERW, thank goodness, because our caster brains would not like to pronounce that for a whole series. Instead, it is going to be the E-sub known as Azerthine. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So this squad, 2-1 in series, 5-2 in games, has Rutledge, who, Slayer, if you don't know, is probably one of the best and most consistent players at this skill level. Always seems to get chips, always seems to make it far. And with him at the helm of this squad, they are looking scary.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how, these E-subs factor in, obviously, when you talk about how much time certain teams have spent with some of their E-subs, who is really familiar on this certain squad most with an E-sub, because when usually you have emergency subs coming in, we don't know for sure, this isn't facts here, but from what I've seen it most, it's involving a lot of, player, like a friend of a player that has to come step in, right? Maybe not the entire team, so we'll see how that synergy goes. But obviously, we have 2 teams in this matchup, Quacks, and on the other side, a team that desperately is looking to get back to winning ways here, TRV Foxhound at that 1-3 spot.
Not having as much success, like you said, in their squad, consisting this week of Don Lino in the top lane, who you can see is usually in the support position, Satan, Brady, Bougie, Boogie in the AD carry role, and then their support this time around, another E-sub, is going to be Supporto, who you can see on that substitute position just below Don Lino. So some flexibility also being shown here for TRV Foxhound, who, like you said, desperately need to get this win. As we close in toward the playoffs, TRV Foxhound, I believe, are at the bottom of the Chem Tech division, and so just trying to keep their playoffs hopes alive and need to win this series as fashionably as possible in order to make them getting into that next stage of play still a reality.
Big time spot indeed. It's always fun when you get towards the end of a regular season in any league and you start talking about the fact that for a lot of teams, regular season matchups become playoff matchups. in these big time best of three. So I think for TRV Foxhound, like you were talking about, Quacks, certainly the spot to be in, and it's going to be fun to see exactly how both these teams look to adapt around certain substitutions slotting in, and obviously always fun to get into the drafts, which shouldn't be too far away, see exactly how these teams want to start prioritizing some of these different lanes. Like you talked about, you know, a couple of changes to the AD carry meta. Maybe we don't see as much Ezreal priority. Does he still become, you know, sort of a two flex champion where you can go from mid to bottom with him? There's just a lot of interesting little intricacies that come with playing on a live patch that quite literally went live not very long before we even got to this big time matchup. And hey, looks like we're not far away from that draft.
The big thing, the big meta shift that I am really interested to see how it kind of shakes around this week in particular is TRV Foxhound and their preference around mostly pick comps or poke comps. At the same time, they like the Ezreal. They like things that usually have that big long range. The Varus is also kind of a favorite. It was really, I think, the sauce that allowed them to cook up their first and only, sadly, series win here in the AEL. They really had, I believe it was Boogie on the Varus, just taking names and shooting arrows. So a lot of poke comes out from the side of TRV Foxhound, and like you said, that Ezreal being nerfed certainly removes a facet or certainly makes a facet of their play weaker, because they might have to pivot into something a little bit more unorthodox. But this is the AEL Slayer. Unorthodox is this league's middle name. They love to play preferential picks. At the end of the day, what's nice about this is that you never know what a team is going to whip out in the next week. They could go from a full engage comp one week to a poke comp in the other week to something crazy in week number 3. We've seen some crazy picks just in these 4 weeks, and we're going to be cooking up some crazy ones in week number 5, I have to imagine.
Yeah, and that's the fun thing about no matter what level you're talking about playing in leagues is the best teams that make deeper runs are the teams that can play different styles of compositions. So it's nice to hear that, you know, in the regular season, that's where you kind of test out some of them. You know, everybody can play a team fighting comp, I think. It's when can you start flexing the ability to play, you know, more poke-based spacing compositions like you were talking about to your split push compositions. There's a lot of ways to really flex your muscles in the draft, and we'll see how these two squads decide too. We have OED on that blue side, and the blue side conversation always comes around what do you want to prioritize in the B1 and what do you want to try to deny on the turn. And so far looks like we're taking chips at the bottom lane. I like this a lot for OED because most teams at this level, when they're on the red side on that turn, usually like to try and lock in at least half of their bottom lane, if not the whole thing. So taking away what I have to assume are comfort champions and Caitlyn and Braum, making a ton of sense. I like the style.
And especially when it comes to OED, I have to imagine they're going to prioritize that bot lane when it comes to those first couple of picks, as we are moving our way through the bans steadily. As the Braum, Caitlyn, Varus taken away, along with the Zeri Kha'Zix. My boy taken off the table. I have not seen him played in the AEL yet, sadly. Maybe one day, maybe in a far off, distant land, or in my dreams. Something like that. But yeah, Kha'Zix taken off the table, and Lilia going to be the final ban. Now, OED, any team with Rutledge Slayer really likes to go for those early aggressive plays, and so I have to imagine they try to get something a little bit more supportive for their solo laners like Rutledge and Terps, who are very aggressive in their own playstyle. So yeah, not surprised to see this come out. The Seraphine going to be the first to lock in here for OED. A good little bit of support and just backline assistance for what I have to imagine is going to be a very aggressive in-your-face comp.
Yeah, Seraphine, always an interesting pick. You know, there's been times where she's been prioritized as that mid lane champion, support champion. There's, you know, areas where she goes support. She has the ability to go in her kit really damage oriented, especially with like the Faded Ashes items. Seraphine could actually benefit from them as well, but then you obviously have your Moonstone path that's all about the heals and shields. So we'll see exactly where that Seraphine is going to slot in. Like this turn a lot though for TRV Foxhound. I think Leona is definitely in the S tier, but maybe even a little bit higher up than S tier. Everybody and their mother loves Leona right now in the meta, and that's a great pairing as well. On top of that, Kai'Sa Leona, you're bringing just a lot of CC with this Leona, the tankiness, and then Kai'Sa brings the burst and the dive potential to follow Leona forward when she looks for those solar flares, Dina the Blade lockdowns.
Leona also recently nerfed on the patch, did actually get hit when it comes to damage. So that all-in level 2 coming out from Leona is not going to be nearly as strong, but you said it best. You use Leona for the stun, you use her for the lockdown, and most importantly, you use her for the fact that she is very, very tanky. So going to see the quintessential Leona Kai'Sa aggression coming out from TRV Foxhound in the bot lane. Exciting to see. And it's looking like OED are trying to match that with a little bit of disengage here on the bot side. They have the Seraphine, and pairing it up with the Alistar means it's going to be hard for this Leona and Kai'Sa to actually stick on to this very slippery, very disengage heavy bot lane that OED have drafted. And to pair it all up, they're actually going to throw Terps the Urgot early here. So top lane pick revealed earlier than expected, and Aurora going to be the lock-in here on 3. I thought this champion wasn't allowed to be picked on week number 5, but clearly I was mistaken.
Let me see. No, enabled. Last day of disable for the AEL is July 31st.
Oh,
so
well,
Aurora is enabled.
First day of play, Aurora, here in the AEL. Yeah, interesting.
Okay. All right, so Aurora, very mid lane based champion. She is all about, for any of you guys, I mean, I'm sure most guys are familiar at home about Aurora, but we gotta understand with her, especially for in lane, she can shove waves like crazy, and her kit is all about her roaming potential. I kind of look at her in a lot of ways as like kind of like an AP Action, and the fact that like she has an invis, she likes to push waves, and then she roams and tries to just delete the bottom lane or top lane she goes to. So it'll be fun to see exactly how this Aurora gets utilized, how they look on the Rift, since we've really gotten to see them come on to Summoner's Rift, except for solo queue games. But I do want to talk about this Urgot because, you know, I want to give you some flowers, Quacks. You did say OED like to play through their solo lanes, so if they're going to lock an Urgot and then I assume another main carry in the mid lane, I'm fine with this Seraphine Alistar bottom lane, even if it's not really the most meta of bottom lanes in this current iteration of all the things you can do with the marksman support duo.
And it also leaves up the jungle and mid duo of OED to pick a quintessential AP jungle pairing with an AD mid laner, and Rutledge really likes his AD mid laners, so you could see something like an Akshan picked, you could see something like a Yone even picked. He really likes to go for these more aggressive champions. Tristana and Corki are also on the table if you want to go a little bit more meta, but I've seen Rutledge pull stuff off that you would never expect in your wildest dreams. Meanwhile, I think a lot of the meta AP junglers haven't been taken off the table. You still got your Zyra, you still got your Brand. Lilia was taken away, but that's just one of many, in my opinion, that are really terrorizing the Rift, utilizing that Faded Ashes item. As it's looking like TRV Foxhound are actually going to lock in that Aurelian Soul. So, you know, we might be burning down the kitchen a little bit with how we're cooking up this comp, as that might be an Aurora top. It might not be. I honestly don't know. But certainly a loop we've been thrown for here, Slayer.
Yeah, 100%. So I do think she has some capabilities in either solo lane. It does make some sense to me. She can be pretty matchup dependent. I just like her in the mid lane more because what we just talked about, she is best in the early to mid game where she is shoving her waves and looking to impact the rest of the map. She's not like, you know, an Aurelian Soul, for example, who's just here to, all right, I'll farm. I just want to farm. Can I just farm the whole game? That's what Aurelian Soul. That's not what Aurora wants to do. So we'll see how it works in that top lane. Is the turn from OED is confusing me even more. We have locked arguably 3 top lane champions to end our draft. Where are these guys going, Quacks? Cho'Gath, Gnar, Urgot? Somebody's going somewhere wacky.
I think it might be Urgot Jungle. This is something I believe we've been seeing Urpog, who's a popular Urgot OTP streamer, kind of sing his praises about this pick being really good. You can farm pretty fast if you're proficient on the champion. You're able to have good gank potential. You're very relevant in team fights, right? Once you get those upgraded fully online shotgun knees, that W can be an absolute menace, along with the Fear Beyond Death, which is an always useful ultimate. You can never really go wrong with an Urgot ultimate being by your side, regardless of what position that it's thrown in. So OED, like you said, Slayer, kind of throwing some interesting hats into the ring here. But TRV Foxhound also kind of doing a different thing, as they are locking in the Olaf here. So this could be Olaf Jungle, potentially. That's a pick we haven't seen in a really long time. It feels like Riot has really been pushing for Olaf to be more of a solo laner, but I really got nothing else. I feel like there's no way we see an Aurora jungle here, right?
Yeah, so we do have some alleviation of our chaos here, Quacks, from our lovely producer Wookie. It is a pro draft blunder, unfortunately. That is a Zach, not an Aurelian Soul. So that actually clears up all of TRV Foxhound's comp here. So Zach jungle, Aurora is going to go mid, and then that's an Olaf counter pick in the top lane. The bigger question, obviously, that you're posing now that we know is who is this Olaf going into? The funny thing about Olaf, I don't really think he cares which one of these three is going into because Olaf just arguably wins into all of them in the early game and maybe even further.
But Olaf can get kited, and so I do think this is most likely going to be a Gnar top lane who, while it is still a relevant pick, it is more so operational on those team fights, right? You always want to get those objectives, those 3rd, 4th dragons, threaten that bot side river with the Gnar bar being full and always having that big iconic Gnar shove available to get those big team fight starters for OED. But Olaf is a champion that won't care about that, right? He won't care about the Fear Beyond Death. He won't care about the Encore. He won't care about the Gnar shove. So this kind of opens a lot more doors, I think, for TRV to play for. They have the bot lane in Leona Kai'Sa. They have the Olaf. There are a lot of different avenues for a champion like a Zach to play for, and so it's just a matter of which one does he want to really play for the most, because he's got a lot of options. He kind of has the pick of the litter here, and it's just a question of which one he decides to actually go for, in my opinion.
Yeah, without a doubt. It will be interesting. This is a fun draft we've had because we have, OED who are the one problem is, will they have enough damage? That's the question.
Yeah.
That's what happens whenever you don't draft a pure marksman. I don't care. Gnar and Urgot, like they're like maybe a quarter each marksman, maybe like half for Gnar, quarter for Urgot. So they still don't equal a whole marksman is what I'm trying to say. So their problem is, all right, do we have enough damage? Will this death ball work? And then TRVF is like, all right, we just drafted every single damage type you could think of. Aurora, we have Aurora, Olaf, and Kai'Sa. That is more than enough damage to cover every damage type. It's always fun when you have those games because it's about breaking the death ball, or do you just outlast the damage of Aurora, Kai'Sa, and Olaf? Because if you could survive their initial punch with this Leona Zach, the Seraphine gets enough shields through, the Urgot is pretty good at sustaining. Cho'Gath can sustain well in fights once he gets a Devour off. Like, if you could sustain this damage, OED will run it over. It's just going to be fun to track who's strong enough to do what once we get onto the Rift.
My big question before we go into a break here is I feel like it's kind of going to be a game of chicken in a lot of these team fights. Who goes in first is most likely actually going to lose the fight, because you look on one end, you're going into an Urgot, you're going into a Gnar, you're going into a Seraphine, right? Death. So it's complete suicide to try and go in there and thinking you're going to come out alive. On the other side, though, TRV Foxhound have an Olaf. They have a Leona. They've got an Aurelian Soul who might have Sky's Descent. So a lot of tools to be able to disengage and punish getting engaged on over there on the red side as well. So it's really going to feel, in my opinion, like whoever goes in first is definitely going to be on the receiving end of a beating. So that's what I think. That's what it seems like the teams are playing for. They're playing to get engaged into while also having a little bit of engage themselves. But it's all going to come to a head here, Slayer, in week number 5. And so while we wait for the teams to get in through their spectator delay, while we wait to load onto Summoner's Rift, we have got a small little video for you all. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more League of Legends actions on the other side.
Quick shout out to ProComps, our sponsor and a game changer app for the League community. This isn't just like the other tools. It's your personal draft coach, perfect for both teams and solo players. In fact, you can pair it with any other app you use. ProComps stands out with features like custom champion pools, personalized tier lists, and live draft advice. Think of it as having a virtual coach and a strategy toolkit all in one. They offer real-time champion ban recommendations. They already have over 200,000 downloads and thousands of daily users just like you. ProComps is user-friendly and totally free. It is a no-brainer to at least give it a go. Download ProComps now and you'll experience a whole new level of drafting power in your league games. Go to procomps.gg, download it from Overwolf, or click the panel below on our stream.
Welcome back, everybody, to week 5 of the Aegis Executioners League. Game 1 between Optimal Esports Dynasty and TRV Foxhound. I am still Quacks. I am still joined by Slayer. And what a draft for Game 1 to open us off in this series, huh, Slayer?
Yeah. Glacial Augment Cho'Gath mid. All right. I'm gonna keep it a buck. If I was on this guy's team in solo queue, I would not be happy. But life is about learning, and maybe something will be taught by me to Ruthledge on his Cho'Gath pick as he expertly drops a ward. Actually, I think it was Kirov that got that ward, but spots out the entire invade from TRF and gets a nice little warm welcome to the Foxhound squad of what's to come with these Cho'Gath queues that now slow them every time they get hit by them going forward.
I'm actually a little surprised that the bot side of OED didn't respond to that invade with a potential ward of their own. A champion like Zach, you want to make sure you can track where this pick is going. It has the potential to go over those walls, get a lot of angles that other junglers struggle to be able to gank from, and being able to track him early is part of the game because that really is his weakest point. If you can kind of play around where this Zach isn't, then I feel like OED gonna double their chances of getting a successful playoff. But nonetheless, the junglers going to be starting on opposite sides for the time being.
We'll see exactly how they go about their clears. Once again, the Optimal Esports Dynasty lineup is something that I'm still have to take in, so we'll see how this Urgot clear goes. It looks like Turf's about to pay the price for stat checking a Olaf on a lane right off the rip and has to burn the flash. So goes for flash. That's definitely something Don Lino likes, and hopefully Turfs will learn the Olaf tax is a real thing going forward.
So now Satan maybe has an option. No flash on the Gnar, is just finishing up his Krugs and will be going down to his Raptors. Has the opportunity to maybe cut across with the priority that has been generated around that top side, and the priority that most likely will be generated around having that Aurora. You mentioned the push that this champion has in the early game during Draft Slayer. So that opens up some opportunities for the Zach to maybe go a little bit aggressive, maybe mess around with this Urgot. But instead, he is just going to continue his full clear, doesn't want to commit to anything too early, because OED, they are an early game-centric team. This is a squad of 5 that love to make those early aggressive plays, so maybe try not to fight them when they're at their strongest.
Yeah, good little tip. I would certainly say so. It is interesting because I feel like they have drafted a comp that doesn't want to do much in the early game. I mean, Seraphine Alistair, the bottom lane is just going to farm. Cho'Gath mid, I don't think you play much differently than you do top, so I would assume Ruthledge is just going to farm. And we talked about the Urgot jungle a lot. While there are a lot of unknowns about it with how little it gets played, I do still very vehemently believe it is a power clearing jungle, so he just wants to farm. So it is going to be on to the Foxhounds here to see what they can get away with in the early game with the Zach, like you talked about. This Olaf is definitely going to win on the top side, and push should always be in the hands of Kai'Sa and Leona going forward as well.
And pressure should also be in the hands of Kai'Sa Leona as well, constantly looking for those angles. I want to see Supporta trying to get those engages onto the Alistair, onto the Seraphine, because usually when you see a champion like Leona, you know, this CC machine that can just hold someone down for so long, it almost always forces the cleanse out of the opposing marksman. But you're not dealing with a marksman, you're dealing with a APC, you're dealing with a support champion in the AD carry role, and having to take teleport means you will not be there for the initial barrage of CC. As hold on, Don Lino goes for the flash.
Yeah, he's flashing forward. See if he can get one more slam. The axe goes for the fade away. Perfectly timed with the turret aggro. Don Lino picks up first blood for the Foxhound, and Ruthledge had to burn flash with the say 10 ganks. So the early game already shown out here for TRV.
Really good play there by Don Lino. Actually just flashes to, I believe, pick up the axe and get those extra little autos off so that the Q comes off of cooldown. And just manages to hit him where it hurts, manages to find a moment of weakness in Terps and gets the solo kill. Exactly what you want to see from TRVF's top laner, who is supposed to be in the support role, Slayer, and he is already showing he's got some his tricks up his sleeve here in game number 1.
Yeah, keep that in mind, North America. The real role swap of champions is support to top. You heard it first, the AEL. We got it first. Just But when we see Core JJ's final year with TL be him lane swap up to top and win worlds, just remember the AEL.
There's no way they would. There's no way they would do their famed top laners like that. TL has had so many good top laners, and hey, there's no shortage of top laners here in the North American League, and I certainly feel like Don Lino is showing that here in game number 1. He's supposed to be a support as, hang on, Rutledge actually manages to hit the Q, tries to maybe go for a bit of a cheeky trade, but Aurora, like we mentioned, so good at clearing the waves, but also so good at disengaging, right? Has that innate mobility to get away from those unfavorable quick trades that Cho'Gath wants to go for.
Yeah, and with flash down, Rutledge has 0 kill threat. The only real Cho'Gath kill threat. Okay, don't make me eat my words here, Brady. All right, pops in the invis. Still Rutledge close by. Does have the slow coming across from the E, and does force a flash with upending the earth there. So caster curse in real time right there as Brady will have to take it back.
And I like this move from Kirov, helping Rutledge push out the wave. The Cho'Gath low on mana, so it will force a TP out of Brady. Not too big of a deal, though. Both objectives are up, and Rutledge himself is going to have to take a back, and it will be on a later timer than the Aurora, who should be able to help out toward this dragon that has been started, as the TP is just now coming across from the Cho'Gath.
Yep, just now getting back into lane here. Both mid laners down without summoners, though, so that'll be something interesting to track. Also, Rutledge has Devour online, so should start stacking up as that, you know, tankier threat can be. Is holding on to it, so I wonder if Rutledge wants to hold the Devour to get champion executes, but that is going to nerf his ability to get tankier as the game goes on.
I think they're actually just holding it for the dragon. They want to make sure that he can get a stack of Devour. Yup, he manages to get his first one. It is important to note, though, that I believe the Epic Monsters Devour stack counter is maxed out at 6, so you can only get 6 of those off, whether it be onto the grubs, the dragons, the red buffs, the blue buffs. It has a cap, so you cannot do it infinitely. So at some point, Rutledge is going to have to get a little bit more aggressive, is going to have to start feasting on Rabbit, potentially, or some Jello, if he's really feeling up to it. As that time is going to have to come for Cho'Gath if he wants to get any bigger and wants to really be the big man in a lot of these late game team fights.
So I thought the 6 cap was towards just minions, or...
I think it also includes the Epic Monsters.
Okay. I am curious. It's been a while since I've seen a lot of Cho'Gath, so we'll see. Obviously, getting to 6, whichever one, there is one form that maxes out at 6. So yeah, that's what Cho'Gath in the early game. That's why you see him just constantly using it on minion waves on the top side, because he just wants to get those base health as quickly as possible. But yeah, the Devour becomes very key for executing champions, and does kind of like when you talk about a Callista, the Rend gives you the smite advantage. Later on when we get to these big dragons, big barons, Rutledge will give OED priority on 50-50s because, like you kind of saw Kirov already do with that dragon, he smites early, and Rutledge can just Devour at a much higher HP threshold to secure a potential baron, just like he did on that first grub to pick up his second stack.
OED taking those grubs, like you mentioned, Slayer. And you want to talk about smite advantages. Satan a little bit behind in the farming department. As you can see, he just managed to get that fabled 900 damage on the smite, so he will not be able to contest those grubs. So despite the first and only kill going the way of TRV, OED managing to supplement a solid lead in terms of objectives. And overall setting up for that late game, which is, like you said earlier, exactly what they're going to be playing for.
Yeah, well, Kirov, though, might be under threat as Satan has found him. Doesn't get the knock-up, though, and with the elastic slingshot, is not going to find much more. So Kirov will blast going out to safety. And yeah, this is the early game that you want if you are Optimal Esports Dynasty by this point, because you honestly, I would still favor I would give them the gold lead if it factored in the dragon in the first 3 grubs, because those are more powerful than a 300 gold lead by this point. It's also really important that they got the first 3 grubs, because I think, you know, when we talk about side lane pressure, this team is not really going to have a ton of it, and you definitely want to take it away from Don Lino, who's certainly the most fed member of the Foxhound, and Olaf certainly would love grubs, because he is a menace that also loves whatever fight he can get on the side lane. So no might's going to be available for Foxhounds in this game 1.
But I do imagine that OAD still are going to be playing around those side lanes quite a bit, trying to garner pressure around the map, or at least to the opposite side of where objectives might be spawning. Say a dragon is spawning on the bot side, they're going to say, okay, we have to push this top lane, and they have the TPs to be able to back it up, right? 3 TPs to 1 on the side of TRF. Hold on, we got an all-in coming in.
Yeah, that's a little audacious there from Dion Lino. Ragnarok popped, goes under turret aggro. Great flash there from Terps. It is matched, but that's both Summers off Don Lino, so top lane starting to sway back towards the Dynasty side.
And you can even see in real time that QERW is making a beeline for the top lane, saying, all right, bot lane, does not matter. The wave is pushed in. There is a summonerless, ultless, very low health Olaf in the top lane, and I want to see if I can do anything there. So good recognition, actually, from the Alistar to come up toward top lane, and it'll be interesting to see if that actually turns into something.
Right now, looking to take the Blast Cone over. Yep, no Ragnarok available, but Meganar is going to come down for Terps, and I feel like that should assuage the dive all on its lonesome. Don Lino does have low mana, but Olaf does not really care about having low mana. If he's low health, he's going to heal through.
Looks like the ignite.
Yeah, the dive should commence here. QERW trying to charge up his stun, gets the headbutt pulverized down.
Oh, he autoed the turret.
Yeah, he autoed the turret, has to pop Unbreakable Will, and he's barely going to limp out, but it's going to allow Don Lino to also survive, unless the double hop comes through for Terps, and he will clean up what looked to be a shaky dive for OED.
Yeah, it was messy, but they get the job done. They punish the resourceless Olaf. They get the kill, and Terps now, you know, from earlier, that solo kill on Don Lino almost being void now with the gold lead, and now the kill. This Gnar firmly ahead, I like to say, in the laning phase. 20 CS up. Yeah, you could see around 300 gold and is sitting on about 1.3k, so is going to spend all of that and be just that much more stronger. And it will present Don Lino with a bit of a disadvantage because you don't have the sums. You do have the ultimate backup, but Terps will just be able to hop away if he gets all in. So the Olaf starting to limp a little bit in the laning phase, which is not what you want to see if you're TRVF.
And certainly you don't want that at all, as Don Lino also has to come down to cover some of those camps. Brady and Don Lino don't want this fight, though, as the damage that Ruffledge pushes out is actually pretty big for just having one row done. I do like the response here from Say10. Recognize, all right, I'm getting invaded, losing camps on one side. Let me just make sure to even up that Drake count so we can cut down that win con for OED.
And having the Mountain Dragon be the soul, to me, a lot more impactful in the late game at this point, because that is a soul that I think is good, not just good, but great for both of these squads. They have tanks, they have engage, they have fight potential. Mountain is amazing, and what's more amazing is Seraphine singing.
Yeah, look at the lockdown for Maze there. Doesn't get the encore on to Boogie, but does hit it on to Supporta. And the lockdown with the double tap of the E comes through. Who says Alistar Seraphine lanes can't go in to get some kills, baby?
And they play the cowbell, they play the Seraphine song, they get some action down in the bot lane. Don Lino looking for some action of his own, but like we talked about, when you don't have Flash, you don't have Ghost, and you have a Gnar who's willing to just jump away the moment you pop that Ragnarok, you really aren't going to get a lot done as Olaf, as there is still some action in the top side. The Grubs started up there by Satan, actually manages to get 2, so it's only going to be 4 in the hands of OED, so good denial coming out from the top side of TRVF, but you still will have access to those mites at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? They still get over the threshold of, all right, we'll get one might down, which can be very powerful, like you were talking about, for side lanes when you likely think Terps is going to take up one of those slots, and then I would honestly say it could be Kirov more than Ruffledge that is going to try and push out some of those side lanes in that jungle position. So good to get those mites down. We still see QERW looking for those roams. Can't really threaten Maze under the turret like this, even with Kirov hovering. So we can see what OED want to play for. They want to play for Terps, and what timing as Say10 comes in for a gank there. Gnar ultimate down. They're going to try and burn through Don Lino, who does pop his Ghost, does have Ignite over his head. Can he heal through enough? Terps can't get close enough for the damage. Will go mini, will miss the Q just wide. And now Say10 can take his chance at frontlining, but Don Lino out of mana, out of health, cannot look for a re-engage, so everybody walks away with a couple bumps and bruises.
Just a little bit of a scuffle coming out there from the top lane. Kirov clearing up his jungle camps. I want to see if maybe he utilizes the push in the top side. As hang on, we have a dive. I don't know if you want this, guys.
Yeah, Supporta whiffs the solar flare, eats a double Q tap. Boogie gets turret aggro pull-in, has that killer instinct, and used to go back across the turret very well. Look at the damage Mate puts up, sets up the Fear Beyond Death for Kirov to get Boogie as well. This Seraphine in the AD carry role just got 3 kills for OED with the snap of a finger.
And they managed to get the Seraphine at the end of the day. Maze does go down. But like you said, that's 3 kills going the way of OED, and 2 of which in the hands of the Urgot, who is level 10, very close to getting that max level W. So will have it on at all times, will be a much more consistent threat in any skirmish he's a part of. And I have to think that next skirmish has a Rift Herald written all over it. And TRVF, I don't know if they can even try to contest something like that.
Yeah, it's going to be really rough, and I'm just really shocked by the damage that the Seraphine's putting out. Maze is not ahead in CS by any means. It's still 30 down, and, you know, it didn't have any kills prior to that. I think it had 1 kill, but the damage the Seraphine pushed out was crazy. We'll see how much damage they get down on the Rutledge, who is starting to become a pretty tanky boy. He's going to have to commit to flash to get right over the wall. Boogie and Brady still hounding. We have a teleport coming through from behind, though. That's Meganar up Terps. He's going to look to see if he can find some sort of engage. Has the ultimate available, but now he's in a little bit of a tough spot. Going to hop back in, throw down the ult, but he's going to get burned through. Great solar flare comes across from Supporta to start off the fight. Double stuns and shutdowns rolling through for the Foxhounds as Kirov tries to get one back on his same 10, but he has to burn his flash as well. And the Foxhounds pop out of their hole and find themselves a ton of gold waiting for them.
Little bit of a suboptimal fight coming out there from Optimal Esports Dynasty. They had initially gotten engaged on. They tried to turn it with the TP from Terps, but that TP felt a little too late. And, you know, as soon as the Gnar does manage to stick the landing, does go in the mid lane, he's surrounded by the Foxhounds. He gets stunned up, he gets chunked out. And by the time he joins up with his top side, it kind of feels like the play is dead in the water. So TRVF, they managed to get an advantage for themselves. They don't actually get the Herald along with it. So no big objective going to go their way, but it is gold into the pockets of a team that was recently struggling in this early stage.
Yeah, and they'll get some more gold injection as Donlino will knock down that top turret. Does pop the Ragnarok, trying to see if he can fight Turks. We have action on the other side of the rift as Kirov and company are going for an invade onto Say 10, but Brady pops the Between Worlds. We'll see this Aurora ultimate in action. Doesn't utilize any of the borders, just trying to straight run down onto Kirov, who does kite back, get the Fear Beyond Depth down. Watch for the encore though on the side from Maze. Gets a ton of lockdown, a ton of damage, but Boogie is going to go forward with a huge killer instinct to pick up 2 kills instantly. Solar flare down on the Rutledge. He has a nowhere to go, and Boogie is trying to be the hero of this fight. Give him a triple kill as OED crumble at the Drake pit.
And Boogie dances around the members of OED, but they're not done yet. Maze, the singer, the Seraphine of OED, is still standing. We'll have to flash away. We'll probably get away. No, Satan is continuing to chase. Has to pop the ult in defense, but what a play coming out from the AD carry of the Foxhounds.
Yeah, that was a massive. I mean, that's what Kai'Sa's about, is testing your limits on the short-range AD carry with a ton of burst potential, and Boogie has done a couple of really sound killer instincts. It's good to see Supporta as well rebounding from that whiff solar flare on that bot dive that really kind of set a bunch of climactic events in order for OED. Last couple of fights has been nailing these solar flares, playing the Leona like we expect her to be, even in her a little bit less damage-oriented form on 14.15. And now we got ourselves a game. The gold lead is back to within hundreds.
Still very close. 19 minutes into the game. Terps trying to knock down this top lane turret, and he will be able to do so. Now Donlino in a lot of trouble. Did just get the Ragnarok, so I don't know if this Gnar wants the smoke. He does have his teammates coming up to potentially help.
Yeah, good dodge on that first axe. Donlino has to burn the flash and the ghost. Supporta being a noble support right there. Tanky the Fear Beyond Death. But it's Donlino once again, Quacks, having to use both summoners defensively. That's not what you normally see from an Olaf.
And it's going to force the recalls out of some of the members of the Foxhounds, which means OED can just pivot on toward this Herald. They have taken all the tier 1 turrets though, so it's less clear where exactly they're going to place this one to try and net themselves a further advantage around the map. So it is probably just going to be answered when they look for a pick. They've got the Encore available. QERW is roaming around the map on the Alistair, as you can see. So they get an advantage, they get a pick, they drop the Herald and get a tower, and suddenly the gold lead that you said was what was within 100 or in the hundreds again, probably just going to grow back for OED, and it's going to be up to the Foxhounds to try and get a pick of their own, try and whittle out the timer of this Herald, and really just not give an inch over to OED.
Yeah, and it's big as a team when you can get all 3 outer turrets down before 20 minutes. It just opens the map up a lot, and it's something that, you know, at this level of play is a really big hurdle for a lot of players. So I'm curious to see how OED operate with the fact that they just have so much more map that they can now set up vision in and set up pick plays in, especially since we have Baron Nashor on the Rift. Having the mid-tier 1-up makes it really hard for a team like TRF Foxhounds to really find any big flank angles and also punish you for stepping up into the river. So I hope to see OED take massive advantage of that.
It also just means that champions like Zach have a harder time going in for those engages, right? Zach wants to start up those fights, wants to get those slingshots from the fog of war, but OED are not playing that game the way that Zach wants to play it. They are constantly tracking Satan. They know where he is. They know the times he's trying to engage, and they're being respectful of it and just looking for their opportunity, which might come now.
Yeah, Ruffledge has the Devour up, waiting for the next Q threshold, chop down Ruffledge, takes down Supporta. Maze does it an encore onto Satan as well, who has to get bouncing and flashing out himself to avoid the might of this scary, scary Cho'Gath, who's getting even bigger as the minutes come along.
And Gnar is close to getting bigger as well. The Mega Gnar bar is full. They have the ultimate available. They have a numbers advantage. They could potentially look for a dive along with the Herald here. The question is, do they pull the trigger?
Get a big unearthing there from Ruffledge down. They have those single mites coming across as well, but there's the Between Worlds bringing forward into the middle of 5 with the Aurora. The knockups are coming through, but do the health bars stand up? No, they don't. Fear Beyond Death, Kirov executes Satan. Don Lino will get one back traded, but gets rammed down by Maze on the back end. And the Death Ball already foreshadowing what could be the rest of the fate of this game 1.
And Supporta is here, but only to assist his team in emotional support for losing the tower. Another objective going the way of Optimal Esports Dynasty. But the health bars, the numbers just not there. They don't have their jungler, so they can't turn this into any sort of a Baron take. The next step likely going to be setting around this dragon instead, which is going to spawn in a little less than a minute here. And with all members responding, coming back from base, spending that much earned, hard-earned gold, it feels like TRV Foxhound, they're going to have to ice skate uphill if they want to net back an advantage that they have lost in these last few minutes.
And it's just compounding because now even more of the map is available for OED. And it's not that Optimal Esports Dynasty are the team that want to play, you know, catch you in the jungle, flank you around in the mid lane for a fight. It's more the fact that they now can set up and avoid those from TRF Foxhounds because they're the team that are looking to do that with an Olaf, with a Zac, with an Aurora. And it's going to be really on, you know, Satan and Supporta, who have the clearing, who have the scrying orbs, or I'm blanking on Oracle lenses, to clear out the vision, to try and still find those flank angles. But like you can see here, the river is completely in control right now of OED. If you're the Foxhounds, you don't even try and make a push for this dragon. It's not one that's really valuable. Just give it on over and worry more about Shelly, who's going to try barreling down on that tier 2 in the bottom side.
I do like this response, though, coming out from Don Lino, trying to get some pressure on toward the top side. Terps has to respond, but this Gnar doesn't have TP, so if a fight starts, neither of them will be a part of it, and that certainly is an advantage for TRVF. Don Lino just trying to get some damage, but this Olaf, it feels like the tables have turned to such a degree where now Terps, even when the Ragnarok is popped, it's winning out on these trades as Gnar. That is definitely not a sign you want if you are our TRVF. If you have an Olaf and he is losing trades to Gnar, you might want to consider how the laning phase went in this game. And it certainly, as we saw, did not go the way of the Foxhounds.
No, it certainly didn't. And Terps living up to the reputation you bestowed to him for me when I got on this broadcast. I really like the patience. He knows that he can win with Ragnarok pop, but doesn't want to take the chance with Mega Gnar. As we see, Kirov does get the slowdown with the Q. Fear Beyond Death push through. Can he get close enough for the execute threshold damage? Yes, he can. Sends him to the blades and picks up a solo kill in the name of OED.
reeling the Olaf to the slaughter. Now with the man advantage, they do have Kirov in the area. Brady is being held down by Rutledge, but they can't go for that Baron. They can't go for that guaranteed extra damage that the Devourer, or not the Devourer, the Feast provides from this Cho'Gath. So they're not going to go for that objective. They're going to play it safe. It is just going to be gold into the pocket of Kirov, who is now sitting on around 2 items. So this is a very tanky, heavy damage dealing Urgot, who, as we've seen, very, very relevant in a lot of these team fights, and kind of feels like something that TRVF don't really have an answer for at this point in the game. You look across the items and they don't really have any items that can shred through the armor, that can shred through the shields of this top side.
Yeah, I gotta give a lot of credit to the coaching staff for OED, because this is obviously not a very standard composition. Urgot jungle, Cho'Gath mid, right? The Seraphine in the AD carry role. But I think when we saw those last 2 picks, they were the Urgot and they were no, actually, I believe it was the Gnar and no, yeah, it was the Gnar and the Cho'Gath, right?
Yep.
On the turn. It was them recognizing, hey, TRF Foxhounds are really low ranged. Like, once we knew their really soul was a Zac, Aurora is the longest range champion on this comp. And what really counters comps that have to play short range? Death ball comps. So OED, I gotta think, turned and locked in this Cho'Gath and this Gnar, knowing, all right, they quite literally, even though they have a ton of damage, their damage has to get close to us. And you never want to get close to a Cho'Gath, a Mega Gnar specifically, Alistar and Urgot. Like, these are 4 champions that if you get close to them, you're playing in their wheelhouse. And OED recognized that, and that's partially why it's just so hard for the Foxhounds to even start up fights in my mind.
But nonetheless, though, the Foxhounds have managed to get advantages playing their style of game in the past. We saw that triple kill coming out from Buki, but those conditions, it feels like those are really hard to be met, right? All members low, all summoners gone, all ultimates unavailable, and now life might be unavailable for Don Lino as he's just being collapsed on by so many members of OED.
Yeah, and they're just going to wait out the Ragnarok, right? All right, now we can see him lock him down, throw him up into the sky, and feast him over to Rutledge, who continues to get stupidly tanky. Do like the turn here for the Foxhounds, pushing down mid lane. They do pick up that coveted mid tier 1. May's cut off from trying to protect the turret. They have a teleport for Rutledge coming across, though. Oh, no, it's actually Terps. So they'll save the mid tier 2. And now the flank is coming down. Can the 4-stack of TRV get out? See if they can use the blast cones potentially. Say 10's going to utilize 1. Another one coming across here for Boogie as they try and get a deathfall of their own. And they're still chasing. There's QERW jumping back in. The Encore's going to fall short there. Brady drops the between worlds to see if he can just trap them all in this pit. But Brady might not want to be in the pit on their own as well. Rutledge gets chunked low by Boogie. Does have to flash out. And it looks like OED pushed a little bit too far forward trying to get under that tier 2 turret. And somehow nobody dies out of the 9 members that went skirmishing.
That was a little bit of an overambitious chase coming out there from OED. They get the pick onto Don Lino, and I have to think, you know, with the push in mid, they try to force a response from TRVF to go to the Baron and fight them with a numbers disadvantage. But instead, they go for the chase. They try to punish them for taking that mid lane tower, and it ends up with them, like you said, Slayer, not getting anything. So just overall, stalling for time here for TRVF, who now are trying to supplement some control over this bot side river, and it's looking like OED, in a cruel twist of fate, are the ones that have to walk into Vision this time around, when they have had a lot of control over this side of the map all game long.
Well, all game long indeed. Teleport coming across for Brady to make this a 5 versus 5. How much poke damage can they get down, though? Can the Foxhounds? They get Terps pretty low. Mega Gnar going, so this is certainly when the Dynasty want to look for a fight, and their health bars are just going to purely push the Foxhounds off of this entire river. Knowing Mega Gnar's up, they don't want to go for that fight. Terps now going back towards mid. He does support a look for an angle. Jumps on top of the Alistar, who does pop the Unbreakable Will, so there's an ultimate down that should tick down slowly.
Satan is in fog.
Yeah, and they have Rutledge on the side as well, trying to flank the flank coming across from the Foxhounds. Does have Don Lino a bit cornered. Both these teams are so sheepish to do anything. Neither want to start the dragon, neither want to engage the first fight.
Yep.
Finally going to be OED that do start up this dragon, but they succeed control of the pit once more, trying to see if the aggro can now go on to say 10. Somebody just needs to step up and try and throw some sort of blow, and it looks like Rutledge is going to get jumped on as Boogie does commit the killer instinct to go forward. Blast Code keeps Rutledge safe. He is at about half HP. The Seraphine shields are going to have to become really key for OED.
And the feast.
Yep, the feast is up and available, and that's going to make sure it's a lockdown. Mountain Drake secured. Encore going to swing across many, and here comes Don Lino trying to go back in with his Mega Gnar. Does have the Ragnarok pop between worlds, holding the rest of OED at place by Brady. The health bar is pretty chunk low in these massive tanks. Say10 does go into the passive, but Maze is out of health, out of mana, but Fear Beyond Death comes through for Kira, and that's going to turn the fight in an instant. The big Juggernaut comp moves forward with a swift double kill over to Kirov. Brady and Boogie both have to bail out, but Boogie's fate may already be sealed, trying to desperately get his E back up for the speed up. Gets slow spotted, the Q's gonna land, and Kirov is gonna find himself a third kill shut down over to OED as they break open the stalemate.
And Kirov, we had questions about this Urgot jungle. We had concerns. We had our doubts. It's time to silence those here. If you are OED, the Fear Beyond Death, providing the re-engage that the team needed. They get the AoE fear. They get the damage up. They get the double kill. And they're going to get the Baron along with the soul point.
Massive. Massive. Especially the soul point, honestly. Like, Baron's very nice. And it's actually very funny watching them try and take this. The one weakness of a zero marksman comp is, boy, are your Baron takes slow, but like you mentioned, doesn't need to be fast when you just wipe the team off the map before you take it. Baron secured onto all 5 members as well. Is no Supporta, my friend. That is not the blast code you want to take. Okay, Kirov does get this kill with Fear Beyond Death. Does have the execute threat low and grabs another one, and maybe a bigger fight breaking out. Don Lino does pop the Ragnarok. Those ultimates committed from Brady as well, but Don Lino, his Ragnarok runs out. His time runs out on Summoner's Rift. Back to the great screen he goes for a 6th time, and OED get a bit of a dessert to the feast of Baron. 2 more kills picked up, and they might look for a 3rd hero to Boogie. He is getting wrapped. No, he should be safe. But the wheels are certainly falling off the Foxhound truck by this point, Quacks.
Oh yeah, Supporta just trying to cancel the back, but unintentionally walks into the den of lions that is OED and just gets eaten alive along with his top laner, Don Lino, also being a casualty of war in that exchange. And OED are saying, you know what, we wanted to recall, we wanted to spend our gold, but 2 kills is cool, and you know what's even cooler than that? A whole inhibitor. As like you said, TRVF, they are grasping for straws at this point in the game. These last 2 exchanges have been so detrimental to the win con that they wanted to play for, and it feels like, barring a miracle, OED might just have this one in the bag.
Kirov certainly being the catalyst or the tip of the spearhead for OED by this point. We talked a lot about how this Cho'Gath can look in the mid lane, the Urgot early game clear, but being in the jungle role. But one thing will always stand true with Urgot, he is a late game menace that once he gets enough damage, tank, mixture items in, he becomes unkillable and he can kill virtually anybody with ease. He's got the Black Cleaver, the Sterex, the Kanix stun, he's got heal cut. What doesn't Kirov have right now?
He doesn't even care for damage at this point. He's just saying, you know what? I already have damage. I already have an execute. I already have so much in the tool shed on my kit. I just need to survive these fights, and he's not dying anytime soon. It feels like the damage coming out here from the Foxhounds is just non-existent. You've got the Kaisa, who's 5-2, but like we've mentioned so many times, is required to go in to a lot of these exchanges, has to join up with the engage from his team, and you never want to engage on that side of OED, so it kind of leaves you with the heads you lose, tails you lose situation. So it's just going to be about what can they try to do to wear off this Baron buff. Can they look for another angle? Can they look for maybe some vision around this dragon spawning in about a minute?
Oh, well, maybe they'll just go for Don Lino, who once again has to pop the Ragnarok defensively for another moment in this game.
Terps time.
Yeah, Terps is in a 1v2 that he doesn't know about, but the problem is Terps is level 17 as a Mega Gnar. I don't even think they win that 2 versus 1 as the bottom lane of TRVF, so they just back as they lose another turret here. Inhibitor bot lane soon to go down. Good flash from Say10. That is Fear Beyond Death down from Kirov, but I mean, just look how hard it is to go into this stack. I mean, QERW, Kirov, and Rutledge, they take forever to chunk down. Maze is totally protected in this side of this death ball. And like you mentioned, Quacks, there's just no way for the Foxhounds to even go in. It feels like a losing fight, but they're going to try and make the stand at this last top lane turret. Brady commits the Aurora ultimate.
Brady, where are you going?
The damage down is now running out of her own base. Not the best strategy. Encore going to miss, though, from Maze. They have the lockdown on Supporta. There's a rampaging kill for Rutledge. The last inhibitor soon to fall behind. Don Lino just got Ragnarok back up, by the way. Amelia has to pop it again to try and run away. Actually, that's Ignite. That's not even Ragnarok. I'm getting my ultimates confused, but I'm not getting anything confused from Kirov as Brady nearly gets chunked down on the side. All inhibitors down, and the Juggernaut comp is just going to wear right onto the Nexus turrets. What can you do if you're the Foxhounds? They're too tanky, they do too much damage, and they've got too many shields. It's wraps for TRV. Foxhounds give a 1-0 lead over to OED.
And it's just going to be them padding the stats at the end of the game here. They're getting the kill onto Say 10, and they're saying that's enough, or maybe not. We want the kill onto Brady. No, instead, let's just go for the Nexus. Let's end this game. Let's move on to game number 2. And boy, oh boy, did it feel like OED came here to play this week, Slayer.
Yeah, you know, this is a very fun game, and I can see why Optimal Esports Dynasty are 3-1 with a 5-2 game score, because they have unique comps, but they have the wherewithal to execute them. I mean, there were times, you know, yeah, sure, they made a couple mistakes over pushing with some of their Fed members, but once, you know, we really got back to brass tacks, they played slow, they played as a group, they made sure Maze was never alone on the Seraphine, and the tankiness and the bruiser quality of this Urgot and Gnar, it just became too much to bear. It was wonderful to watch a comp like this execute so well on Summoner's Rift.
And it kind of felt like sort of the broken pinky on this iron fist of a comp that was drafted here by OED was Terps, right? Getting initially solo killed by Don Lino. But the moment they shored up that weakness, the moment they got the Gnar to join up with the rest of the squad, it felt like there was no way they could ever engage this comp. It felt like there was just no way to get through this front line, because you literally only have frontline against you and a Seraphine, which they also struggle to get to. You could see only one death going the way of a Maze. The Seraphine not only playing to, you know, shield and heal up those frontliners, to heal up those big carries of OED, but protecting against the dives, being a really good weak side champion, allowing QERW, boy, that is certainly a mouthful, to, you know, roam around, help out that Gnar, bail him out of a precarious early game, get Rutledge ahead, make sure Kirov can secure every objective in the game, basically. And it was just a well-oiled machine. No matter what the comp says, no matter how suspicious it might look, it was still a win, and a damn convincing one at that.
100%. And on the flip side now, TRV Foxhounds, we talked about coming into this week, 1-3. Like, this is already a playoff series. If you want postseason to be a reality in the Chemtech group, you drop the first game. Side selection is the only silver lining here for the Foxhounds, but they have got to come up with a game to win, and honestly a series comeback if they want their postseason aspirations to stay alive. As after week 5, it's basically wraps if you lose this one with only 2 weeks left.
So kind of walking, tiptoeing on the knife's edge if you are TRV Foxhounds. They got one chance at redemption, and it rests on them getting not only a win in game number 2, but like you said, Slayer, a win in game number 3 and a series to take home here in week number 5. But we are going to take a small little break while we wait for the next chapter of this series to commence. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back, and we'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, everybody, to week 5 of the Aegis Executioners League after a pretty decisive Game 1 win by Optimal Esports Dynasty. They are looking to get themselves a 2-0 and cement themselves as the top team into the ChemTech League, or in the ChemTech division, rather, as we get down there in the playoffs, race in the playoffs, run toward those top teams. And on the other side, TRV Foxhounds being on the receiving end of quite literally a pretty bad beating and just trying to get a shot at redemption to keep their playoff hopes alive. I am still Quacks. That is still Slayer. And welcome back, everybody, as we commence Game 2 of some great League of Legends here.
Yep, Game 2, Foxhounds do not want to swap sides, so they will stay on red for a very impactful game. Just to remind everybody of the standings, Foxhounds are sitting at 1-3, but the team that is in the play-in at the 4th slot, the ChemTech standings, is 2-2 with the same game score. So that's what we're talking about. Like, for the Foxhounds, like you need to get series wins because you can push your way into some sort of postseason play. On the other side, for Optimal Esports Dynasty, Iridescent Dawn Ignite is the only team above them. A 2-0 sweep to send them to 3-1 with a 5-game score would certainly make them a threat for the top seed in the ChemTech standings. So certainly a lot to play for still here for both of these teams on different sides of the coin as we get the band starting to roll in game number 2. No difference so far.
But I have to imagine that TRV Foxhounds, we doubted the comp that was laid out by OED in game number 1, and I felt like a lot of those picks were almost kind of one-offs that you expect to kind of a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me sort of scenario. But nonetheless, they are going to ban away that Urgot. They realized that that was a very, very tough threat that they really didn't have an answer to in game number 1. Was able to power farm, get to level 11, get all of those objectives under his belt, and eventually just take over the game, right? That Fear Beyond Death turned so many fights on its head, made him invincible, and just really made it so that OED were not able to lose any of those late to mid-game team fights. And they're also going to ban away the Seraphine for a good measure. Maze having a really good performance on that as well in game number 1. Now, OED on the blue side, see, this is the tough part about being a color caster, Slayer. We're the guys that have to be prediction analysts and be able to say what is going to be pick number 1. Like, how would I know that Misfortune is going to be B1 here for OED? How could I possibly predict that? But I can predict what that is going to be paired up with, and Alistar is certainly on the table if I'm looking at that. If OED want to run that back, if QERW, a bit of a repeat here in game number 2, Misfortune is a great pairing.
Yeah, who's also a great pairing? Leona, if it gets through.
So, yep, true.
Solar Flare, Bullet Time is a deadly combination. Do like to see that Maze has been forced onto an actual marksman with that Seraphine ban. Quickly talk about that. I love the strategy. A lot of teams employ it. The Foxhounds are employing it here. Just get rid of the champions that beat you in game number 1, right? Totally flush the memory because you don't have to deal with them again. So let's just get them out of the way and adjust our draft. So yeah, I like that strategy. The Jinx is the turn pick here for Boogie, who wants to stand on that Kaisa at points, and they aren't going to take the Leona. They prioritize the Sejuani in the jungle higher, so if I'm QERW and I play Leona, I mean, this is the easiest slam ever in my mind. Yep, there you go.
There you go. You're the prediction guy now. What am I doing here?
Yes.
What am I doing here, man? Oh my lord. And that is going to be paired up with the Skarner. Kind of surprising to see that, as there was actually, I believe, a stat on r/League of Legends that said Skarner has now reached pre-rework levels of play since the nerfs came in for him. Literally is back to being non-existent. Even a rework could not save the curse that is on this poor little Scorpion. And it's looking like TRVF are going to go back and run back a pick of their own as they do lock in that Aurora. And I'm kind of questioning this Sejuani. You want a lot of these melee champions, I have to imagine, to be able to proc that Winter's Bite, but you have a lot of range on your side instead, a lot of pick potential instead, which Sejuani can play around, but it's just not as effective, I would imagine.
No, it certainly isn't. So obviously we're going to see someone melee in the top lane. Likely get a melee in the support role too, so we'll certainly see as we are into that second stage of bans. Don Lino switching from support to top will not get to go back towards that Olaf. I think that ban is a good ban because I wonder, you talk about Skarner's a lot lower play. I wonder if he's more back to jungle, or you could still flex him top. Maybe that Olaf ban kind of signals this could be a Skarner top because you want to force in a tank v tank matchup of some sorts. We'll have to see. Obviously, the Foxhounds don't really care if the Skarner's going top or jungle, as they've banned away 2 mid lane options into Brady's Aurora. So yeah, we'll see. We've seen the OED do some crazy stuff with top laners that go in different lanes, so I would not be surprised if we see the Skarner go top and we have some hijinks on the back end of this draft from the Dynasty side.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think maybe a good response coming out from TRVF, if they want to get like an Olaf adjacent champion that's aggressive but can also mess with the frontliners in OED, could be that Trundle. I think that is also an option, especially if that Skarner in the top lane. Trundle is a really good response to that. Pillar, I believe, cancels your ability to go for that dash, along with the fact that you're able to steal, of course, those tank stats that Skarner loves so much and essentially punish any engage that OED might go for. But for the meantime, they are going to hold that top lane pick. They are going to give it the last. Are we back?
Hello?
I'm back.
I lost the feed. I'm back now.
I'm back now. We're back now.
Okay. We're good. Okay.
We are good.
I definitely missed what you said, Quacks, in the last 15 seconds. So
Renata good, Trundle good, Aurelion Sol also really good from OED on this lock-in. That's all I should say. Just a quick little summary.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I like it. Aurelion Sol and the Rumble gonna round it out. So really balanced damage comp as well. So it is gonna be Skarner. Well, I mean,
it could be Rumble Jungle.
It could be either of them.
Yeah,
so we'll see which ones come across, but it's still really powerful. This is a bigger team fight comp. So this is like OED are going for there. All right, let's see how many ultimates we can stack together, right? Because if you can throw down a good solar flare to set up, an equalizer, a fallen star, or a sky's descent with a bullet time, like that's gonna shred through this Foxhound comp, who do have some flexibility to spread out a fight here and maybe play a bit more for the sides with this R5 Udyr coming across.
I also think this R5 Udyr is good in the sense that you basically take away Rumble's ability to all-in you early and get a kill. Because Rumble, not only do you have the equalizer available, that big team fight ultimate, but you're also very oppressive in the early game, right? If you manage to get that heat well, if you have the ignite as well, you are basically a one-shot machine. You surprise the enemy with your damage, you get a kill, you get an early advantage for yourself, and you kind of just steamroll the game from there once you break out of lane. Udyr kind of stops that dead in his tracks, right? With that empowered turtle stance, you will never die. You'll have the ability to clear out those waves. You'll be able to stalemate the Rumble and essentially make it so that you are, like you said, a side lane threat that Rumble has to deal with, when in reality, he's the guy that wants to team fight. So TRVF not letting OED really unlock this comp in the way they want, not letting it be as well-rounded as they would really like to, and instead providing them with distractions like the Udyr, who will almost certainly be sitting on the opposite side of the map at all times in this game.
Also interesting, the Sejuani pick looks now. There's only one other melee, so that Winter Bite passive could become a lot less effective, but it is early jungler versus early jungler now, where we had kind of we had the power farm versus early jungler. So it's gonna be fun to watch, Say10 and Kirov just path here, because I think both Sejuani and Skarner are pretty about not full clearing towards a lane that they want to prioritize for a gank, which makes it cooler to watch how the minutes before minions crash come across, which side of these two junglers want to start on, and maybe this game we'll see somebody put down an aggressive ward to try and track the other one.
Maybe we will indeed, but for now we are going to have to wait for that spectator delay to hit us, and we are going to go to a small little break, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more League of Legends. See you soon. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for some more AEL action. Game number 2 between Optimal Esports Dynasty and TRV Foxhound. For those of you just joining us, or for those of you who were not around for game number 1, OED with a decisive victory here in game number 1. And they managed to get one step closer to the top of the Chemtech division. TRVF, one game away from potential elimination when it comes to playoffs. So this team grasping to try and get that reverse sweep here in this best of 3. And they've drafted a pretty damn good comp to try and do so, Slayer.
Really good comps on both sides. I think the only issues that arise for me is early prioring a Sejuani into a comp that doesn't have a ton of melees can make for issues with the stun lock. And, you know, I think there's enough CC to kind of mitigate that, but what will be really interesting to watch is how does Supporta play on this Renata Glass, because Renata is certainly a feast or famine champion in the sense that it really all revolves around those, you know, how well do you execute the windows on your bailouts and your hostile takeovers, right? Because hostile takeover is a completely fight-altering ultimate that not only just stalls a team pushing up against you, but forces them to really dole out the damage on their own team, and then bailouts can really turn a fight by taking somebody that should be dead back into it. So I'm going to watch to see how Supporta plays on this champion, because when Renata's play bad, it's rough, but when they're play good, they are game-saving in a lot of aspects. That's a game-saving early game flash there from Terps.
Aggression there coming out from Don Lino, similar to what we saw in game number 1, right, where Terps was immediately forced to burn that flash defensively against the Olaf. Now this time around having to do the same thing against the Udyr. So Udyr not as nearly high of a kill threat machine as someone like Olaf, but still is able to lay down that pressure, still has that push with the Phoenix stance, and will make for a lot of opportunities, I feel, for Satan to potentially utilize around this top side with that push and with having that priority.
Certainly something to watch as this game evolves. We talked a lot about the jungle pathings here as well. Mirrored clears, both looking to go for their full clears, and both also full clearing towards lanes where they have the prio, right? The Maze and QERW have the prio on this bot side for Kirov, and then Satan has Don Lino shoving in. So early game, not going to have actually a ton of gank potential early. Going to have to wait and look forward towards that first Drake and Grubs in my mind, unless these lanes decide to get a little bit feisty.
It definitely feels like the most action-packed lane we're going to see has to be that bot lane, right? Because you've kind of, if you're OED and you are TRVF, you've put a lot of eggs into the bot lane basket, especially if you are the Foxhounds. Really, a lot of your late-game damage, a lot of that late-game hyper-mobility comes from this Jinx being able to get the resets, getting those early leads, getting those 3 items. And it really can all be snowballed in these early stages. So I am questioning a little bit why Satan actually decided to path up toward that top side. Maybe just realized he wouldn't have the priority on the bot lane, as Leona and Misfortune can just go in for the all-in. So it does force the Jinx and Renata away a little bit. But I do want to see Sejuani, I do want to see Satan really trying to get this Jinx ahead, because that is how you snowball this game into late, and it's how you survive the late game, most importantly.
I think, you know, Satan and Brady should just be teaming up a lot in this early game, because the Aurelion Sulfur Relish, we've already talked about a couple of times, right? It just wants to farm, isn't really too pressed about roaming to create kills on the map, waiting to hit those item thresholds and be a menace in the later game. So we already talked about last time Brady locked it. That's not what Aurora is about. Aurora is about affecting the map in the early game, kind of like you think about Ahri in a lot of senses. So
yeah, it's a good comparison.
We'll see if they get to team up. That's a Chompers landing down onto Maze, who doesn't have the barrier, does have flash. We'll have to commit it. QERW now getting hounded by Satan, who does not get the winner's bite stun until he is back under turret. The Ignite, a couple more rockets, nearly does it, but QER does limp out, and Maze tanks the zap. Still, prio over to the Foxhound bottom lane.
They managed to burn the summoners off of the members of OED's bot lane, so no kill at the end of the day, but good amount of pressure being laid down by Satan, which is exactly what we said was needed, right, Slayer? So really good recognition by the Sejuani, and with those summoners burned, with those health bars depleted, they're actually just going to turn onto the Dragon 5 minutes on the dot. They are looking to get this objective and this win con as early as possible.
And mid laners don't even have an ultimates. QERW, though, is way too far up for having that low of a health bar. Will die. Gets Jinx excited. Boogie flashes away, trying to 1v1 Maze, but one more auto should do it. The bailout could reveal it. There it is. Supporta comes online, and Boogie is unleashed. A double kill back over to Satan. And OED crumble, trying to stop an early Drake take, and it might even get Kurov killed. He can't go out. The choppers are blocking his path, and he's surrounded by 4. And Sejuani goes on to a killing spree. The Foxhounds explode in the early game.
And a great early game coming out from the Foxhounds. The kills netting on over towards Satan, but also Boogie getting so much gold, so many advantages on this Jinx. And I love the recognition immediately after that bot lane play. They say, okay, the bot lane of OED, they're in no condition to fight. We can go for this dragon. The wave is starting to push back in favor for us in the mid lane as well. So a beautiful decision along with a beautiful collapse not only nets them the dragon, but a damn whole lot of gold in the process.
We talked about it. Bailout is a unique ability in the game of League of Legends that can really turn fights. And you saw it there, because if that's not a Renata on Supporter's kit, that's Boogie dying. At least the carry traded back. Maze is still up. Who knows what that fight looks like, but you mentioned it already. The Foxhounds have to keep this Jinx online, alive, and getting excited in every fight, and the bailout was able to provide a lot of that big boost. The boost looking to be the size of nearly about 1.5k gold in the dawning minutes of this game too.
And it's not the most relevant item in the game, but Satan already has the Zeke's Convergence, only 7 minutes in as Rutledge. You can't escape the zone as Brady gets the kill.
We have action on the bot side though too. Kurov just can't get the lockdown, doesn't have the ultimate available to pull Supporta back with that Ixtal's impact. And yeah, great recognition of ult timers. Brady locking that Aurelion Soul in. Exactly showing why Aurora might be one of the new counters to the big Space Dragon.
Oh yeah, definitely a good matchup for Aurora, at least in, since she's come out. There's been a little bit of a sheet and a little bit of a blueprint as to what Aurora is good into and what she's bad into. And Aurelian's still definitely more so on the side of a good matchup, as the recognition that Kurov is on that bot side means it is going to be those first grubs going the way of the Foxhounds. Beautiful play coming out there by Satan. And while this Sejuani is on the top side as well, it means that Terps can't walk up toward this wave, so is going to miss out on experience and give Don Lino a chance to get some much-needed experience back.
This is a masterful early game from the Foxhounds, exactly what they needed. I mean, they've gotten everything they've wanted in this early game. Over 2,000 gold lead, both of the first early neutral objectives. This is going to be a big test here for the Foxhounds to show they can hold this lead, and Optimal Esports Dynasty to see if they can make a comeback like this. Turk is already trying to play bait. He's got 2 people coming up topside with him. The flash to create some distance. Doesn't have the equalizer up, but he's still bought more than enough time. And here comes the cavalry to rain through. Shut down over to Kurov, picked up onto Satan. And the Dynasty squad moving like they need to on the back burner.
A little bit of a over-aggressive play coming out there from the Foxhounds. They had Terps zoned off the wave, and you figure that was enough, but they tried to look for the kill. They didn't respect the roam from Rutledge. They didn't track where Kurov could have been, and they get punished for it at the end of the day. Shut down, going over to OED.
Fallen Star stun with the gravity field. Is it going to be enough? Bot side, we have a hostile takeover that is going to hit both from Supporta. Stunts the engage from QERW. Does not mean any summoners go down for Boogie, and everybody can just walk on out.
Good disengage coming out there from Supporta, and it is going to mean that Rutledge roaming up toward that top side, so Brady is going to get some resources back in the mid lane, utilizing those grubs to get, I believe, just 1 play, almost gets 2, as hang on, Satan has the ultimate available, is going to look gank.
Yeah, QERW going to be the sacrificial lamb. Bullet time turn though. Great stun lock comes across from Satan to keep Supporta up. The bailout is going. The bailout will come across, but it's too late. So QERW will trade it. but that's a support picking up a kill when Boogie gets another key one to pick up his objective bounty for the Foxhounds.
Not the end of the world, as QERW did get the kill, but a little bit of unfortunate timing coming out there from the Foxhounds. I think if Supporta and Co waited just a little bit longer for that Ignite to tick and proc the bailout, it would have been Renata alive to tell the tale. But nonetheless, it is still TRVF firmly in the driver's seat, and at 10 minutes, we've got the second dragon spawning. And man, the Foxhounds really showing that they love to take this objective in the bot side river, and they're having really good timers around it in particular.
Yeah, full top quadrant of camps up there, but Satan wants to go for this next dragon and maybe pay another visit down towards bottom side. Both junglers actually showing on this bottom side as well, but Boogie is going to get engaged on. There's the full collapse of QRW, but there's no bullet time. There's no mana on this Misfortune for Maze, so really going to stun any of their 3v3 capabilities. Defensive slower flare down, whiffs, does not find anybody on the stun, and the stun lock's going to come through. Good flash get away from the rocket. Kirov will take it. Another flash away from Supporta's handshake. Both flashes down on the main engage for the Dynasty side.
And they don't get a kill, but they get enough pressure to now they own this bot side of the map. They will be able to push out this wave and likely get the dragon for themselves as Rutledge is in trouble.
Yeah, good flash for Flash. Does Brady have enough? The auto will come through as Brady is taking over the 1v1 in the mid lane.
He uses Expelliarmus with the Aurora wand and manages to get that last little tick of damage. Rutledge going down for the third time this game. Man, this Aurelian Soul not having a good time here in game 2, Slayer.
No, I mean, Aurora's just such a good counter, and the more and more I think about it, the more it's so annoying. The dash into invisibility, the slows, and mostly the ultimate, that between worlds, it's the one way to deal with Aurelian Soul. If he can't glide out of it, he's in a death trap. That's why you saw Camille could be such an answer to Aurelian Soul in fights, because you could just lock him in with the Hextech Ultimatum. Not much different here with Aurora's kit, and Rutledge is feeling the pain of it.
Certainly is, and it's kind of meaning that OED, while they aren't having the best early game, they do have a path toward the late game, right? You still do have the Misfortune Leona bot lane wombo combo. You still have the Aurelian Soul, who will always be relevant with that bullet time, or sorry, that Sky's Descent, as Don Lino goes for the empowered boar stance to try and catch up to Turf, so only gets a little tick of damage off. Satan.
Yeah,
going to escape for now.
Kirov knows that you can't give up mites here. Needs to try and see if he can lock down some of these grubs. Willing to fight for it. A lot of ultimates available. Impale is there as well. 3v3 going to be on the cards. Neither bottom lane anywhere near. So it's just the top side of the map fighting. Don Lino certainly already pretty badly hurting. Does not have the ghost available. Seed engage still come across from QRW. Solar flare down into the bullet time. Comes across. But that was a great hostile takeover once again from Supporta. Saving Boogie from a near death. That would have been a shutdown death nonetheless. We both have the top side for both teams just walking around the grubs, daring the other one to engage. Finally, it looks like Kirov's going to go for it. Impale is going to get onto Brady, and they stun lock with the Equalizer and the Fallen Star to find that big shutdown. And Breath of Light will push off the top and jungle duo for the Foxhounds. Dynasty are really starting to wiggle their way back into this one.
It is going to be another little pick coming out from OED, and again, it just comes off the back of some over-aggression coming out from the Foxhounds. They did not need to go for that contest. They already had the grubs. They already had that advantage. Not only that, but they didn't have the ultimate coming out from Brady as well. The Aurora did not have that crucial ability, and so they pay for it, not only with the grubs going over to OED in the process, but also with a gigantic shutdown going over to Rutledge as well, who needed that goal. We talked about how much he was struggling, and a little bit of that pressure relieved here for OED's mid laner, which could, like you said, give them an opening to come back into this game.
They've got the goal lead below 2,000, which was pretty rough for the early game. And yeah, I think he would have already had the first item off the back, but that shutdown gave extra goal to Rutledge. He's got the rallies done. That should make laning with Brady a little bit easier with that natural slow.
Yeah,
it looks
tolerable.
And it looks like Rutledge's next charge of his ultimate is going to be the first Sky's Descend of the game, which no matter how far behind, that ultimate can shake up any game of Summoners, any game of League of Legends.
Oh yeah, that is the big end-all be-all ultimate of League of Legends at the current moment. You use that that, and suddenly a fight is completely turned on its head. So I think the main focus for the Foxhounds now has to be trying to bully Rutledge before this dragon comes up, because this could be soul point at around 16 minutes for them. That would be probably like a record, right? That would be very, very early to get that soul online. A second, we gotta fight in the bot side. Good flash from Bo3.
Yeah, Kirov is going to use that Excel's impact to try and get over the wall, but he gets locked in between the worlds by Brady. Bo3 goes on a killing spree. That's a massive kill to find the jungler down for Dynasty, and luckily for Kirov, the dragon isn't close enough in time. He'll be back up for it.
And it's also really good timing because those ultimates that were used, the Aurora ult plus the Sejuani ult, they'll be back up as well for this coming dragon fight. But they just want to try and burn this guy's descent. If they could try and put some pressure onto Rutledge, they don't even have to kill him. They just have to make him use this guy's descent defensively. It's looking like they aren't looking to do that. They're just trying to get pressure around this bot side instead. So that leaves open OED to maybe start an engage off of that big ultimate from Aesol.
Yeah, they're not going to have either top laner. Both their teleports are going to be down for this next dragon unless one of them roam down. Do you see Terps going for a potential recall? I wonder if he'll just path straight towards this dragon. I mean, Dynasty, like you talked about, they really can't afford to give up soul point this early.
Yeah, he's going.
Yep, Terps is coming. They've got the team fight comp. Equalizer's a part of it. And you talked about it. Rumble wants to be in fights. So this is going to mean first turret and a ton of gold back to Don Lino.
It is going to mean first turret, but at the end of the day, denying soul point from the Foxhounds, certainly more worth it, I think, if OED are trying to put this one into math terms. They certainly win out on that equation, as Satan maybe not realizing there's 5 members of OED in the area. Hostile takeover, though.
Also, Takeover going to hit 3 Equalizer. Solifer comes down, but here's the Sky Set. Boogie has no way out. What an ultimate from Rutledge to pick off Boogie. All the damage is just zapped out of the Foxhounds comp, and it's done by Rutledge, who gets his revenge for the early game, does have to burn the flash, and Supporter nearly finds the outplay, but a Zenith Blade re-engage is going to force the bailout. Supporter will fall. The kill from Brady is actually going to save Supporter, but it's going to cost Brady his life, and most importantly, to be honest, Dynasty are going to stop this Drake stacking from the Foxhounds.
And OED, the Sky's Descent, bringing it down on toward the Foxhounds. We talked about how imperative this ultimate could be, and Case and Point comes to life in that exchange. They managed to get the kill onto Boogie. They shut down this Jinx. They also are going to get a dragon in response. It did reset, so it'll take it a little bit later than they would have liked. And really the only thing that they lose in the process is the top lane turret. So OED coming up big for the first time in a much needed game where they needed an advantage.
Yeah, and it's all around. They're just, we saw in the last game, you know, we talked about it going out of game 1. The resolve that OED play with in recognizing what they drafted for. You're seeing it already in this game. Despite the fact they were behind in the early game, they know, all right, if we can get these ultimates chained together on good timings, this game is ours to lose. And you saw with the Solar Flare, the Equalizer, and that Sky's Descent all coming from that choke point. If OED can just keep up finding those windows and not be pressured off of playing for those ultimates, they can certainly come back and win this game.
For sure, this is a death ball comp through and through. They love to team fight. They love to go as 5, and this is what we're seeing. Exactly what we want to see.
Oh, but that hostile takeover from Supporter was massive, and the Between Worlds locks them all in. Teleport from Don Lino. We're going to be here a bit later, but the Udyr is already unleashed. Rutledge, though, is able to Breath of Life him down with the fadeaway glide. And somehow it's only Don Lino to fall for now. Re-engage goes across for Satan, but Rutledge is able to get a big combo. There's a great glacial prison, though, from Satan to lock Rutledge in. The choppers will come online, and Boogie picks it up. Jinx gets excited. Now the rest of OED have to bail out from the fight. Terps is lucky to find that slower. He might have been chased down, and he still might get chased down by Brady and Satan. Waiting on the cooldowns. They won't be able to find it. And somehow, Quacks, that entire escapade was a 1-for-1 trade.
A lot of low health bars, but only 2 kills at the end of the day. TRVF, though, 4 members strong down here. They're going to get that bot lane tower. They are going to avenge their fallen comrade as they had their turret taken as well. So just equalizing the gold a little bit. Teams kind of matching blow for blow, pound for pound, trading with each other here in this mid game. but the big focus has to be around these AD carries, right? Has to be around that bullet time. Despite this misfortune, despite Maze not having a ton of kills in this game, not having a ton of gold generated in this second game, it is still very relevant to have that bullet time procced in those team fights, right? Does still deal a lot of damage. On the other side, the Foxhounds want to make sure they can get those resets, want to allow Boogie to roam around the map and get those items. So it's just a question of which AD carry can have more of an impact in these fights, and both teams, they have to play around how those resets and how that damage can operate.
Yep, it's a perfect, Dynasty we'll see which ultimates. It's fun because the damage, there's a good balance of damage ultimates and utility ultimates that are both just ever so valuable. And you see the solar flare come down here. Cleanse immediately answered by Boogie because he knows if he doesn't cleanse that, he eats a bullet time to the face. And solar flare on its low cooldown, that's a trade that QERW loves to take.
And this is kind of what the Foxhounds have to do, right? Try to bait out these ultimates from OED, because I like that point that you mentioned, Slayer. OED are really reliant on those R buttons, right? If they can get good R buttons, if they can get good ultimates off in the team fights, they win, no questions asked. But it's a matter of, do they have those available in a lot of these team fights? And I think the Foxhounds need to make sure that they can burn the Sky's Descent or the Falling Star. They can burn the Solar Flare and make sure that going into a lot of these dragon fights, OED do not have those crucial buttons to press.
Right now, with the next dragon about a minute 15 away, all those key ultimates are going to be back up. What won't be back up is Boogie's cleanse. So makes it a lot harder of a fight for Jinx to navigate. And like you talked about, the marksman matchup is fun because for Maze, it's all about getting a good ultimate off. Nothing else really matters. Boogie needs the reset to really be impactful. One of the two has to happen every fight. And it's going to be fun to track them going forward. Is Say 10 trying to frontline here. There's a power is going to get the stun onto Supporta. Flash having to be burned by Boogie to get away from the bullet time. That's two of those key ultimates down. Here's a third as Chirps has to defensively use the equalizer. Here comes a big hostile takeover sweeping overall, but the Solar Flare comes back up for QER. Is going to lock in Supporta and Boogie, who limps away with Ignite ticking. Flame from Domino, maybe a little late to the party, and he's going to eat an entire Breath of Light combo to the skull. Kirov will pick up the kill. Brady finds the turn, but the bailout was just a little bit too late, so he will fall the Maze on the turn. 2 kills back towards the Dynasty. They have the man advantage for now.
They have the man advantage, they have the health bar advantage as Boogie is taken super duper low. Rutledge tries to get the kill, and although they did burn the ultimates, they lost their main golden goose in the process. They lost Brady. Boogie barely limping here in this fight, and won't really be relevant around this dragon as it is being started up by Kirov and Terps. And really, without that rocket, without any real way to try and go for a steal, OED are equalizing the dragon count.
Yeah, that's massive because that was a big win con for the Foxhound side. So it's going to be 2 apiece. It means that the earliest we can get a Mountain Soul coming online is virtually, if you want to be really technical, I guess it's 32 minutes and 57 seconds, but nobody takes up Dragon instantly. So 33 minutes is the earliest that either team can now get a Mountain Soul. A reality that I didn't think was going to be possible with how quickly Say 10 was burning through those early drakes.
Oh yeah, it certainly felt like TRVF, like you said, unlocked a good win con for themselves, put a lot of pressure onto OED, but OED have been answering that pressure in spades here in game number 2. They have utilized their ultimates well, they have gotten picks onto Boogie, they have made it so this Jinx, even when it doesn't die, cannot enter the fight, cannot step up, cannot even approach the same screen as champions like Leona and Aurelion Sol without eating a gray screen in the process. And so it just kind of means that the Foxhounds have to try and, again, burn these ultimates before these key fights, try and make sure that they can get a pick of their own. But with how safe and controlled OED have been playing since getting that first dragon, it's proven pretty difficult.
Yeah, very difficult. And it's never going to be easy when Boogie's flash is down. And that is the current reality, especially with Rutledge having that Sky's Descent back up. The second one, the more powerful one with how his Stardust works, is available. And he's just going to answer these sideways until he needs to be called upon to drop the entire universe onto Summoner's Rift, which is feeling like it might be towards that Baron pit.
Absolutely. Baron is on the cards, and both teams this time around have a marksman, right? Unlike game number 1, so they can easily take that Baron off of one pick, I have to imagine, from the enemy team. It's just a matter of who can get the pick, as Maze, potentially the target. You can see Satan in that bush, has the ultimate available, and Maze does not have the cleanse.
Oh, good flash though. Gets away from the Glacial Prison, but that's another key summoner. I mean, hey, you talk about flashes being down off Boogie. Key to get it off at Maze as well.
Yep. But I do feel like, you know, the Foxhounds, they do burn the flash off of Maze, but they have a much more difficult time getting toward that backline, right? They don't have those big long-ranged ultimates. They have the bailout, of course, and the ability to get to that backline, but it is much harder, whereas I feel OED have the Sky's Descent, they have the Leona Solar Flare, a lot more lockdown with these ranged abilities. So it feels like it's just more impactful when Boogie loses the flash, but it is still an opportunity for the Foxhounds to utilize that misfortune, being flashless and having no real way to escape danger.
And the real thing that's helping me hold the game close for the Foxhounds in my mind is that mid lane turret. It's half HP, and it's really preventing QERW from finding good angles, and mostly Kirov, because with that Ixtal's impact, being able to go through those walls can make really unique avenues to find these impales. But that mid turret is just so pesky. You can tell Kirov wants to see if he can get towards Boogie, but the turret being up could be big. We're going for Boogie, but the hostile takeover is going to burn through Rutledge. He is the first one to drop. Here comes the bullet time back out. Will get a stun, but without Boogie, the Foxhounds are just too little to fight, and it's showing up big here. The big time double fail will come across for Kirov. He's the only one here, but he likes his odds up against Brady. Don Lino burning his health bar down. QERW tanked the turret to try and help out his loyal jungler, and it will save him. Rutledge dies, Boogie dies, but Dynasty are the ones to stand up tall.
Dynasty managed to get the win. I loved that flank coming out there from QERW. He was sitting in the Raptor pit. He paired up his CC along with the Sky's Descent. Boogie can only cleanse one ability, but he had 5 thrown right into his face, so he goes down instantly. The big carry, the Jinx, the golden goose for the Foxhounds, not able to play the game, and as a result, OED, they get the fight win. They get the turret as well, which, like you said, was really the thing holding them back from making those more aggressive plays. And after such a turbulent early game, they have now equalized the gold in its entirety, Slayer. They have come back in this game.
Equalize the gold, equalize the dragons, equalize this entire game too. And the only thing that isn't dead even in my mind is just tempo, and that's the one thing that we'd give to the Dynasty in these last 10 to 15 minutes. They've been playing with a lot more agency.
Oh boy.
Here we see the response from Satan and company. There is the Between Worlds Aurora ultimate locking Kirov in. He's a tanky Skarner, but not that tanky. Good pick found, maybe some motivation finally back towards the Foxhounds.
And OED, they're trying to maybe get some space, try to buy some space. Big equalizer.
Yeah, equalizer bullet time. Supporta is the one that's going to get burned through. Rutledge shows up late to the fight, but he's here, drops the fallen star. Boogie eats a solar flare, gets locked down.
Oh my God.
Just burning through Brady. Boogie's the next target. Doesn't have a good flash. He fails it over the wall, and this is going to be a wipe for Optimal Esports Dynasty. Another glide comes online for Rutledge. He's got the slow onto Don Limo, who's desperately trying to get towards that turtle stance for the shield, but the breath of light. There's nothing but a merciful death, a delayed ace, and potentially Baron to Dynasty.
You pick off our jungler, we pick off practically your entire team, is what OED says. It is going to be Satan at the end of the day, limping from that fight. Will have the Warmogs to regen. But they managed to get the picks onto Supporta. They get the picks onto Boogie. Yet again, this Jinx just not able to play the game. So jungler be damned, they will be the ones getting the sole point out of everything that could have happened in this game, Slayer. I could not have predicted after the Foxhounds got those first 2 dragons that OED would turn it around at this stage of the game like this.
It's the makings of a team that can make a deep postseason run. I know I'm the new guy on the block in the AEL, but I said it before. You know, playing like this, the tempo and the recognition of what you drafted your team for are marks of teams at any level that are able to make deep runs here, and that's exactly what OED have been showing me. And one thing we also forgot to touch on with the Ultimate Fest comp that OED has, boy, do they love jungle fights. And you saw it. That equalizer from Terps might have actually been the unsung hero, hitting 4 members in that tight chokehold to start off that last fight.
And it just means around this Baron it gets worse, right? Because we have the Baron where the pit is constricted, has that little tunnel, and it means that an Equalizer is the perfect ultimate to throw down around that area. Domlino, though, potentially in trouble. Doesn't have the Ghost.
And Pale's up as well, so as tanky as he is, he's just getting locked down, and Terp's Flamespitter is huge. On the other side, what a combo coming across. Where did Rutledge lock in the bottom lane to the Foxhounds, set up them on a silver platter for Maze's bullet time to rip them through, send them back in a body bag, 3 for OED.
Wins across the board coming out here from OED, and they turn their eyes toward the Baron, but they don't even want to take any chances. Satan, the next target.
Oh, and Brady's locked in by the gravity field. Rutledge goes dominating. It's only Satan left up. Maze hounding him. Equalizer down. Burning alive is Satan. A-stopped on Esports Dynasty as they are on the cusp of a 2-0 sweep.
And they're going to go for the Baron. All the members of TRVF are dead. Boogie does have the Super Mega Death Rocket to potentially look for a steal, maybe even look for a kill, as Rutledge is very, very low. We'll see if he can and he doesn't get the Baron, but he does get the shutdown. Rutledge, watch your head, my brother.
On your head, Rutledge. That's funny. Yeah, he aimed to kill Rutledge. He did not aim for the Baron. It was way further down the tunnel, but
it's not about winning. It's about sending a message at the end of the day, Slayer.
Yes, it is all about the message. But I got my eye on you, Rutledge. I'm sure he's going to get his revenge here. We do have an unfortunate pause coming across because Rutledge does have another bout of Skies